And we're live. This is Coffin Cast, my second episode. With me today, I have Tim Blake, Demotivatoropinion on YouTube.
Hello.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah, no worries.
All right, so I brought you on here. We're going to discuss, well, I guess first we're going to discuss Donald Trump and the whole election process. What'd you think of that, watching that from New Zealand?
I think it's probably about like the third election where I was paying enough attention to actually see what was going on. Wait, there was Trump, and before that was Romney and Obama, and no, it's been a few. McCain and Obama. There was Bush, a couple of those. I think in terms of all the elections I've seen so far, it was like the most, it felt like the closest, I guess, like the most nail biting, but. Yeah. I wasn't really paying much attention in 2000 when Al Gore won the popular vote, and they were trying to like figure out who the fuck won, and then the Supreme Court decided for George Bush or whatever. Like that was the closest one in memory. But I definitely thought, and I talked about it in a video, that Hillary was doing a lot worse in the last like week or so. She was just kept declining. So I mean, when it got to election day, I was like, this is going to be fucking close. I still thought Hillary would win, so I was wrong about that. But yeah, it was surprising, eh?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, really surprising.
Well, the media had it completely wrong, and I think it's I truly believe that it is fully the media's fault that Trump won. I think they too quickly said that, Hillary's gonna win in a landslide, so Democratic voters stayed home.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing was, Hillary, I think, was kind of like put forth as the next person in line for the presidency. So it was kind of like she was entitled to be the president, like it's my turn now.
Right.
And then it didn't work out that way. People were like, no, it's not your turn.
No. So my president is now, or my pick is now going to be president of the United States, at least until he's impeached.
So he was your pick then?
Yes, he was my pick. I did not think for a second that he would actually win it.
Right.
I was guilty of the same thing that the mainstream media was, even though I was seeing how the crowds that Donald had and the support he had in the communities I would talk in. I was just like, well, that's just people who think like me.
Yeah.
But it turned out he won, so that was crazy.
Did you see my video on it?
Yeah, I did actually. I watched it.
Well, I mean, that was like, that video is accurate in terms of my how it went for me, because like I supported Bernie Sanders, so like Sanders. So 6 months ago, I was like, yeah, they've made the wrong choice because Hillary Clinton is shit and I don't like her at all. And it's just, this is the wrong decision. But then over time, Trump just seemed more and more incompetent. And maybe there also was, partly an echo chamber with the media as well. So over time, I started to feel like, okay, Hillary is professional. She's got this. She knows what she's doing. She's going to win. And then it's like, oh, maybe not. Yeah. So my perception changed over time. Half a year ago, I was like, fuck, Democrats are fucked. Why did they choose this woman? It's a bad idea. But yeah, over time, I increasingly became to be convinced that she was going to win. And also Trump was making a lot of incompetent moves, and there was all this pussy grabbing shit, all kinds of problems with Trump, and he's running his campaign like terribly. It was quite a mess.
What would you define as an incompetent move on Trump's part?
Well, for example, after when he was trying to win the primary or whatever, or after he won the primary, he said that he discovered ground game. Like he hadn't heard of the concept of like getting people out to get him support so that he could get delegates and stuff. Yeah. So everything that he was doing was just off like Twitter and social media. And somehow he managed to pull that off. But it seemed like he could have done a lot better if he just organized his campaign a lot more. And he had like, for example, when he said he's asked a question about what Mike Pence thinks, and then he has to say like, I disagree with Mike Pence, because they're not coordinating.
Right.
So their messages were like all over the place, and it just like the campaign seemed really fucking ramshackle, you know.
So while you call it incompetent, I call it just what's going to happen when an outsider tries to get involved in this process. He has no idea. He had no idea how to win votes or any of that. He's not been a politician. He's never run for any kind of office. So this was all brand new to him. And so when he won the presidency and someone was like, oh, he said that he was surprised by the scope of the presidency. And I was like, well, what do you expect? The man has never been in a political office. I think he would be just kind of overwhelmed, at least for a little bit, by holy crap, this is all of it. This is everything that I've tried to take on.
Well, that means I can say one thing it's not really in his defense. It's more to someone else's detriment. Like that makes me surprised that Hillary got so thrashed, because like she's supposed to know that what the fuck she's doing. So Trump comes in, he doesn't even really know what the fuck he's doing, and he still wins.
Right.
I mean, what does it say about Hillary? It's like how she is more incompetent. She's not supposed to be that incompetent. I mean, she's supposed to be like fucking like a pro.
Right.
So I think that's the surprising thing is I do think Trump's campaign was a mess, and he still won. So it goes to show you, like, the popular sentiment behind Trump was strong enough that he could run a mess of a campaign that was all over the place and still win. You know, that's fucked up.
Right. Well, I mean, so yeah, there's the thing. So it's not as much as it was people were upset with the way the establishment had been exposed. I mean, everyone kind of knew that this is the way politics was run. You know, the stuff that we found at WikiLeaks. Everybody kind of had that feeling. Oh yeah, that's politics. But when it was actually revealed in black and white, it really solidified people's hatred toward the establishment. And his message was completely anti-establishment. His message was completely, let's do a 180. Let's fix this shit. Let's get things right. So don't you think that had a lot to do with it? You know, I don't know. Maybe you don't, because you're not an American.
I mean, I do, because that's why I thought, you know, after the election happened, and I was just thinking about WikiLeaks and all that shit. I just thought, you know, if Bernie had been the nominee, WikiLeaks wouldn't have even been an issue for this cycle unless they found something on Trump, because I assume he doesn't have any like incriminating emails that would leak out anywhere. Right. I mean, unless that's just what it seems to me, unless he was lying and he's like super corrupt or something. But I wouldn't predict WikiLeaks or, you know, the slow drip of emails about like corrupt shit they're getting up to. I assume that wouldn't exist with Bernie, but I'm sure it probably does exist with Trump. It's just it didn't leak, so we didn't see any of that. But I'm sure that if you leaked Trump's emails, it would be like, oh, he's doing dodgy shit too.
At least Trump was fucking honest about how fucking rich he is and how well he lives it up. If you look at Bernie Sanders' mansion that he has, he's obviously not too into his socialist beliefs.
Right. Well, I guess, but I mean, it's about how he would govern the country. Like, you can't say that he wouldn't put in place any of his policies because he has a mansion or whatever. I mean, sure, it's like, it's conspicuous because, you know, you're supposed to like live your ideals. But I think Bernie himself has said that being in this system, there are certain things that you have to do if you want, and like, if you want to change the system, you're still going to be a part of it. You know, he's still going to be a part of that whole system. You know, until he changes anything. But I mean, he lives in a capitalist system. I'm sure he like buys stuff, but he's not on the take compared to like a lot of senators or congressmen. You know, I'm pretty sure he gives a lot back.
Right.
I mean, that's impression. You know, I have to go check out what he's doing. But
we know for a fact that Trump wasn't on the take. We know for a fact that Trump was not even accepting donations from pretty much anyone,
right?
And he funded his campaign all his own, pretty much.
But he also didn't reveal his tax returns, right? So you can't see. But I don't know if that was like his personal or corporate tax returns. But you can't see who he's been doing deals with.
Yeah, well, you can see his corporate tax returns. His corporate tax returns are public record.
Oh, it wasn't his personal tax returns. Is that what it was?
Yeah, it was his personal tax returns.
Let's check. Yeah, because he could be getting up to just about anything with his private money.
Right. But
yeah.
But I mean, it's not it's not against the law to not reveal your tax records. I mean, what do you think you're going to find? Of course, he outright says, I took every tax break I possibly could. He outright
Right.
said that. I mean, what
I know,
what
but
do
you
you
know,
think you're going to find?
no, but you were just saying that the like slow drip or whatever of the corruption to do with Hillary, like that made people angry and shit. I reckon if you had it like the slow drip of his tax return saying, "Oh, he did this deal with some Saudi fucker, he did this deal with some dodgy person here, he did this deal," like a slow drip of that would damage Trump as well, because people would be like, "Wow, his allegiance is not to America; it's like to these random foreigners that he's been doing deals with it, and he says he's all protectionist, but it's not really playing out when we actually look at his tax returns. Unless his tax returns were just all lovely and beautiful and tremendous, but we'd have to actually see them to know. That could have been a big scandal for him, you know, because we don't know what's in them. So
Right. Well, I mean, anything that we would have turned into a scandal, he outright admitted to, and he says that he's going to. He says that he's going to release them after this audit is done. I don't know why he won't release them during the audit. Maybe he's afraid people call the IRS and point out different things. I don't know.
I'm sure he wouldn't want to during the election, just because it would be information that could potentially damage him, and he probably just wouldn't want that out there. Like, I'm sure Hillary was pulling her hair out over the fucking emails. Like, God damn it, why is this happening now?
Mm-hmm.
You know? And but that's what you were saying. You were saying, like, it's not like the inside baseball of politics. It's not actually that nefarious. It's not like the satanic, evil, whatever. It's just what people fucking do. And all the campaigns do that shit. But you see it on paper and it makes you enraged. You're like, fuck.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
So I think if you saw Trump's deals and some of them were dodgy, and you saw that again and again over the course of a few weeks, that would have damaged him a lot. So I think he was like, that can't come out before the election because I want to fucking win, you know?
Right.
I mean, that could be the case. I don't know if that's true. Maybe his tax returns are fine.
So the amount of tears from liberals after this election, you could probably start like an electric plant with it or something. Or just so many tears.
Like a water park or something.
Yeah, like a water park, a salty water park. What you know, your reaction wasn't that extreme, was it?
No, my reaction was I legitimately feel that his policies are going to suck, and I think a lot of people are going to get hurt, like economically and around the world. And I mean, just in terms of my country, I'm concerned about an economic downturn, which could occur or it might not. I don't know. He might be better than we think he is. But I was just like, I'm kind of sad, not from like a pride standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not like, no, my Hillary lost. I love Hillary. I don't fucking even like her. I think people will get hurt from it, and for that reason, I feel sad. But to me, it's not really like us versus them. I didn't like Hillary out of like some pride thing. I just thought like her policies would probably be better. That's the only thing I care about, really. Is like, are they going to be a better president? And I think she would have been a better president. So,
in your opinion, who's going to be hurt by a Trump presidency?
Well, because he's planning on, well, at least he says he's going to like try to slash Obamacare. Probably be a lot of deregulation going on. He'll be cutting taxes. He'll be like shredding the social safety net. He's getting a lot of people from the conservative right into his administration. He's getting the fucking alt-righters in there who are just like racist scumbags who I hate, and not hate, just, you know, in a poetic sense.
What even is alt-right?
Well, I said recently on my Twitter that instead of alt-right, I'm just going to say Nazi or neo-Nazi, which is harsh, but it's just, I think like there should be no place for people who empathize with Nazism in power, or, you know, as being connected to the presidency. I just think like it's kind of atrocious that fucking white supremacists and nationalists are being like integral to Donald Trump's win. I mean, it's just fucked up, you know.
I don't know if any actual white supremacist nationalists were integral to his win, but I do know that he did receive an endorsement from the KKK, which he has now condemned and it said, I want nothing to do with that.
Well, all I know is that nationalism, supremacy, and I don't know, even like strange Eurocentric notions kind of infest the alt-right, and you can just see it every day online. And they might be fringe, I don't know, but they're up like recently. Richard Spencer, who's the guy who came up with alt-right, he did a speech, and it turned into like "Hail Trump." They started doing like Nazi salutes and shit. And I just think that's concerning. Like, it's worrisome. And I just think, but Trump's got Steve Bannon in there, who calls himself a nationalist or whatever. Like, he had a quote about nationalism, and he was like, "Yeah,
Well, there's a difference between white nationalism and nationalism.
yeah,
Nationalism is
sure,
just love for your country.
right." But the problem is that nationalism also often turns into identity-based things, like necessarily, because like it always turns into something about it being our country, and then you're like, what does our mean? Like, who is that?
Mm-hmm.
Who's our? And generally it turns out to be white people, with some kind of European heritage.
Well, when I say our country, I mean all American citizens who are here legally. That's what I'm talking about.
Right.
So, I don't know if you can just say, okay, let's put a label on this. But I will say, when I saw that clip you were talking about where they were going, "Hail victory, hail Trump," that was definitely, that was definitely out there. But Trump wasn't there receiving the hail victories. He wasn't there receiving the salutes. The Black Panthers celebrated Obama's victory. You didn't see
Right.
a bunch of outrage about that.
Well, but those guys are probably more fringe, at least from what I've seen. I mean, I don't think that the Black Panthers are like that influential, to be honest. Are they? I mean, do you think they are?
No, I don't think the Black Panthers are influential, but I also don't think white supremacists are influential.
I think they're influential in the alt-right, and the alt-right was influential in getting Trump's win. So, but that's the thing, is I don't have like specific exact numbers. I can't say for sure who is exactly like a nationalist or a supremacist or a Nazi in that movement. I just know that my impression, just from interacting with it, is it's kind of infested with those kind of people. And well, I'm looking here at what Bannon said. He said, this is recently, he said, "I'm an economic nationalist. I'm an America First guy," which sounds fine. "I've admired nationalist movements throughout the world." I'd have to know what he's talking about there. "I've said repeatedly, strong nations make great neighbors. I also said repeatedly that ethno-nationalist movement prominent in Europe will change over time. I've never been a supporter of ethno-nationalism."
Right. So that's where you get into the ethnic cleansing. That's where you get into the racism. He's an economic nationalist. That means that he wants America to profit instead of lose out in trade deals. There's nothing wrong with that.
But I do think part of the issue here is Bannon has just recently come under like massive scrutiny.
Mm-hmm.
So he's not going to come out and say, "Yeah, I hate Jews, and I want to just get rid of those damn blacks and shit." He's not going to say shit like that.
Well,
He's up to being,
until someone outright comes out and says that, they're not really a danger, are they?
well, he said shit about Jews and whatever in the past, but that's why, I mean, it's difficult to trust anything he says about his own beliefs at the moment, because he's tapped to be, what's that role? White House head or whatever the fuck it is. Chief of Staff.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, he's not going to come out and say this is all fine. But he's had, troubling behavior in the past. I don't fucking know. People say we have to sit around and just wait to see where the Trump administration goes. That's kind of true, but at the same time, I mean, I don't like his policies. So, I mean,
but what policy has
things that I don't like?
What policy has Trump actually spoken about and actually said something about that makes you not like that policy? What is it?
Well, the main thing, and it's not cool, it's not sexy, that I hate, is the massive tax cuts. And that's just left right 101,
Mm-hmm.
I think he's going to like shred the social safety net, and I think that's a massive problem.
If you take some of the tax burden away from the businesses, they can then hire more people and pay more people money. That then stimulates the economy way more than improper government spending can.
Yeah, you see, I mean, I don't agree with that.
Okay.
Because I just say that it's like voodoo economics. It's always just based on assumptions that everything will just, like, you cut taxes and everything will just work out magically. They won't just hoard money.
It's not magic, it's economics.
But it's really not.
Find me a left-leaning economic, someone who has a degree in economics that's left-leaning. You can't find one.
Huh? What about? Yeah, I could, but you would not like them because they're left leanings. You'd be like, not that guy. That guy's not good. I mean, I was going to say Paul Krugman, but I mean, you wouldn't like him because he's too left.
What I'm saying is that it's economics 101 that says if you take away some of the tax burden from the businesses can then hire people. When I was living in Illinois, our governor increased the taxes on businesses, and do you know what they did? Instead of paying the taxes and helping Illinois, they left Illinois and went to a neighboring state. So you're not encouraging more money flow into the coffers by raising taxes. You're actually encouraging money flow into other countries' coffers, and that's a problem.
Putting aside just whether that stimulates the economy, because I feel like that would be getting too far into the weeds, don't you think cutting taxes is a concern just of the impact it has on like the social safety net and society at large, like government spending on things that you need?
Well, I don't know.
Society?
Okay, because here's the thing. There's so much fat in these social safety nets, so much waste in these programs, so much fraud in these programs, that the moment that somebody actually with some business acumen goes in to trim that fat, we might see that it costs a lot less to maintain those social safety nets.
Which programs are you thinking of?
Medicaid, Medicare. I'm talking about the SNAP program, which is the food stamps.
I've seen like numerous studies that say that Medicare and Medicaid are more efficient than, private equivalents. Things that that you could compare to Medicaid in the private industry, like they generally tend to be way less efficient, spend way more money, totally just bilk the consumer of funds, really. But I mean, it's not perfect, but
the government is not trying to make a max profit. A private business is. So when you're talking about social safety nets, yes, that should be kept in the hands of the government. I don't think all medical care for people should be considered a social safety net either. So that's a different topic for another time. But what I'm saying as far as this goes is,
could you say that falls under some kind of like general welfare or right to life or whatever? I mean, if you're dying and you're not getting any medical care,
there is no law. There is no law stopping someone in America from going into an emergency room and getting treated without insurance. No law.
I know, but it's incredibly inefficient, and people tend to. Other studies I've seen, people just tend to go use the emergency room for their healthcare, make some excuse, and it's just a massive drain because other people have to pick up the tab,
Mm-hmm. Right.
Which is why they need some kind of system that covers other areas so that they're not spending all their money in the fucking emergency room.
Well, like I said, okay, we're going off on a different tangent. National healthcare is another topic we can discuss in a minute or so. But what I'm talking about now is the other social safety nets. And there are so much fat and so much fraud and so much waste in these systems that it can be cut down. And by cutting it down, I am sure you can slim it down enough so that the tax cuts won't affect the social safety nets, especially if we're also going to be renegotiating our trade deals with other countries and going to be coming out on top instead of behind. We'll have more money that we can play around with and do tax cuts with.
But I think the thing I take issue with there is, like, not you're saying that there's problems with public programs, because there is problems and there could be fraud and abuse, that kind of thing. My issue with that is, what are you going, like, private industry is also not magically going to be less corrupt. It's
Well,
like people always say government is worse than private institutions, but they never back that up with anything. It's always just like,
well, okay,
point, you know?
but you're building up something that I'm not even saying. I'm not saying that the social safety nets should be privatized. I'm saying that those social safety nets should not be approached with the idea of making a profit. What I'm saying
Right.
is that when you have a government, when you have a businessman who comes into a government thing that is not meant to be making money, a businessman knows how to cut out the things that don't need to be there. A businessman, especially one like Trump, will know how to make a system more efficient, especially if it's not geared toward making a profit. That's all I'm saying.
But then why can't you say, oh, just bring the businessman into the government and do it that way?
Well, number one, our government doesn't always need a businessman at the helm. Okay, our government isn't always needing to be run by, it doesn't need to be an oligarchy, but what it does need is every once in a while there's some corrections that need to be made. There's some times, this is why we have a multiple party system. This is why we have checks and balances, so that we're constantly teetering on a scale and not falling over to the other side so hardcore that it becomes an authoritarian regime. That's what we're working on. That's what the left-right balance is supposed to be about.
But don't you also reckon you should be avoiding a corporatocracy of some kind? Because I feel like that's the risk. The risk with Trump, I think.
This is still a democracy, okay? He's not a dictator. He doesn't have the ability to just start throwing laws out there.
Well, he said, you know, for every regulation we add, we have to take away 2 regulations.
Mm-hmm.
And he's getting a lot of hedge fund managers and lobbyists in there. There's no, you know, drain the swamp. There's no swamp draining going on that I can see. So the thing that I'm worried about with him is that it becomes some kind of corporatocracy where special interests, you know, well, they already have control, but that they have an overdrive level of control, you know, next level control, that everything is just corrupted from top to bottom by corporate interests. Like, that's what I'm concerned about with him.
But without corporate interests, you don't have a thriving economy.
But I'm talking about corruption of the government, where there's so many like inside deals, like, you know, someone from Walmart can just come in and say, hey, we want some deregulation in this area, get it, you know, put on a bill, put it through the Republican House and the Senate, get it signed by Trump, and they're just sitting pretty with their fucking, you know, corporate loopholes and shit.
But we haven't even seen a president speech from this guy yet. You're placing all this upon him from ideas that he had before his advisors start talking to him, before he actually starts sitting down with the people who know the inner workings of the system. You're putting a label on him that he's trying to destroy America or trying to make a corporatocracy, when we haven't seen any evidence of that.
I'm not saying he's necessarily trying to, because I can't read people's intent or their will to do something. I just know that if he follows through with a lot of this deregulation, and considering the fact there's a worrisome number of lobbyists and bankers involved in what he's doing, and he's also, you know, he's a businessman with strong connections to private industry and corporations, put that all together, it just makes me worry about where it's going to lead. I can't say for sure because I can't read the fucking future. If he turns out to be surprisingly awesome as a president, will I be sad? No, I'll be happy. I'll be like, oh, that's awesome. He drained the swamp. Now it's just like a fucking paradise. If he does that, I'll be like, great. But I can't see it leading in that direction just based on the information I have now. But I mean, I was wrong about the election, so maybe I'll be wrong about that. Maybe he'll just put all of his reforms in place and it will be perfect. And it will be like no corruption by corporations. You know, everything is separated. You know, but it's difficult to see that.
Let's talk about the socialist healthcare that you want to talk about here, the national healthcare thing. So why do you think Donald Trump's going to be bad for that kind of system?
Well, because he said he wants to like repeal and replace Obamacare, even though he went back on that, just like he's gone back on just about everything. And he said,
No, he did not go back on that. I'm sick of the left saying
he
over
did.
and over again that he did not go back on that. In
Yes,
the
he
interview,
did.
no, he didn't. In the interview
Yes,
with
he
six,
did.
let
We
me
could do this all day.
let me correct the record here. On the interview in 60 Minutes, he said that it's not going to be an entire repeal. There are things in there that are good, and he said that throughout his entire campaign, that there are things in there that are good. There are things in there that he would like to keep, but most of it is garbage and most of it needs to go. He said that in the 60 Minutes interview, and he's been saying that throughout his entire campaign. So he didn't go back on anything when it came to healthcare.
Right. No, but he said he would repeal it, but he's not going to repeal it. He's just going to like get rid of the bits he doesn't like, I guess.
Isn't that a type of repeal? Even if you repeal a bit of a law, it's a repeal, and he's going to replace those bits that he repeals.
I always thought
He's
the
not
phrase
leaving people. He's
repeal
not leaving people without insurance, and that's what the left is so afraid of, is that people are going to be left without children, without healthcare. But that's not going to be the case. He said that over and over again.
Well, I mean, I always saw the phrase repeal and replace as saying we're going to get rid of all of it and bring something in which is better. And maybe that's just because that's the way that I read that. So when he has this interview where he's like saying, yeah, there's some good stuff in there, you know, it definitely feels like a hedge, you know, because he knows that he knows that people like parts of it. So he can't just come in and get rid of all of it, you know. He's got to keep the bits that are nice, that people like.
Right. Well, okay. So while I can see where you think he's doing that, but he's been saying this the entire campaign, that there are things in there that he agrees with, things in there that need to stay there. But things like the fine, which is the underlying part of that law, they need to go. You should not be required by your government to pay for a health insurance plan, especially at the premiums these are. When I was unemployed and I tried to sign up for Obamacare, they told me $400 a month is what I had to pay. I can't pay $400 a month when I'm unemployed. That system just does not work.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, I just think it's semantics. He could have just said, like, we will partially repeal and replace Obamacare. Then I would have been like, all right, that's fair. You know.
Well,
but
it's
anyways,
a campaign.
I mean,
what do you want? It's a campaign. It's like talking on Twitter. Okay, you have to get out the things that are big. You have to get out the things that are going to actually get people's attention. If you just stand up there all day talking in a monotone voice, well, we're going to partially do this, and we're going. No one wants to vote for a guy who's going to partially do anything.
That's what he's actually doing. That's why it's funny, because it's like, they're not going to vote for a guy who's partially doing things. So they vote for a guy who just says shit that's not fully true. And then obviously he's going to have a lot of controversy when people look at what he's doing and they're like, that's not what he said on the campaign trail. He kept saying repeal and replace.
No, his Trump supporters aren't, the actual Trump supporters aren't even thinking that he's going back on what he said, because the actual Trump supporters aren't listening to the headlines from the mainstream media. The actual Trump supporters are listening to what their candidate is saying. That's
stuff like put her in jail. And he just said
she's a criminal, right? If she's breaking the law, she deserves to be in jail.
I know, but he's not going to pursue that. It's time to heal from the election. He's going to leave her alone.
Mm-hmm. And
so
okay, so yeah. Man, that one he did go back on, but why can't at least so far? He said that she's good,
and the wall,
and he doesn't want things. Like, so some parts might need some fences. So
it's just funny. It's funny because like he talks so much shit on the campaign trail, and the moment he gets in power, he's just like,
you can have a big everything.
It's hilarious.
You can have a big wall with some parts being fences because it's more makes more sense there. I'm not going to sit there and spend 10 minutes describing a wall to you when I'm trying to get all of my points out to you so you don't get bored while I'm at a rally. Or in a debate. In a debate, they only get 2 minutes. Only get 2 minutes to say what they're going to say. So of course he's going to put everything out there. Snap, quick, get your attention. That's what it is. The whole format needs to be redone to get out the points that you're talking about.
Right. No, but I mean that was a big problem I had with this election, and I guess other elections as well, is that when you're the candidate, you can literally just say things, and if you just keep repeating the things, like
That's
every
all
campaign stuff.
elections.
No, I know, but that is kind of a problem because you don't actually have any policies. You've just got like snap phrases.
That's
People
why
vote.
we need to change the format. I am 100% changing the format.
Once you get in power, you can just change your mind on anything. And to be fair, Obama, he walked back on a shitload of the things he said too. When he was like, "We're going to close Guantanamo," and then he couldn't get it closed, and then he was like, "We can't close Guantanamo." But he spent the entire campaign being like, "We're going to close Guantanamo," and then it was like, I think when he got in there, he was like, "Oh,
they're people." Tim, they're people. When they get in office, they learn things. Things are taught to them. Things are they get these briefings. They learn this, they learn that, they learn this. Their minds are going to change because now they have all the information. Things are going to change.
But can you not see the problem that, for whatever reasons, people are not informed enough or clued in enough to check up on what the candidate is saying, which means that someone like Trump can get voted in literally just by talking points. Isn't that a problem? People spend months and months believing this shit that he just says. Like, we're going to have a wall. It's going to have a beautiful fucking door. And everyone's like, yay!
Well, how about
and then he's like, we're going to do fencing.
How about the opposite problem where the media repeated to everybody over and over again that Donald Trump is a racist, Donald Trump is a misogynist, Donald Trump is a Islamophobe, Donald Trump is a homophobe. All of those are fucking lies repeated over and over and over again, and that swayed half the country's vote. How about that? Isn't that fucked up too?
But how do you know those are lies?
How do I know those are lies? Because he loves his daughter. He hires women. He has women on his board. So he's definitely not a misogynist. I know that he's not a racist because he has, he doesn't say racist things. He's never said anything racist. He's not an Islamophobe because
he has said racist things. I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay, give me one quote that's racist.
A good example would be how there was a Mexican judge that was going to be appointed, and then he said he shouldn't be appointed because he'll have a agenda due to his heritage.
You mean he'll have a bias because of his heritage?
Yeah, so
Donald Trump just got done screaming from a bully pulpit that he wanted to put up a damn wall to keep illegal Mexicans from coming in here. You don't think that that's going to have a slight bias, give this judge a slight bias because of his heritage? That's not racist. That's just the truth.
Yeah, but that means that there's no Mexican that could ever be a judge because they're always going to be biased because they're Mexicans.
No.
I mean, what?
A judge for him because he has said things that piss off the general Latin population. When it comes to his things, especially in this time period.
No information about this judge except his heritage. That's the only thing I knew about him.
And?
Like that. So to me, that's like kind of racist to just judge someone just based on their race without looking at extenuating information or anything else about that person, just assuming.
He probably... He probably wouldn't want a woman judge either. Get Anita Sarkeesian to get in trouble for something, and she won't want a male judge after all the things she said about all men. That's just how you want yourself to have the better chance.
She'd be wrong, wouldn't she? If she didn't know who the judge was. If it was just some dude, I would disagree with her too. I'd say that's kind of sexist.
It's not sexist. It's recognizing who you've pissed off in the world and not wanting them to be responsible for your fate.
I'm just saying, there's been numerous situations in which you could potentially read the things that he says as racist, but it kind of depends how charitable you feel towards him. Like, there's a lot of people who are quite willing to be like, when he was talking about Mexican rapists in his first speech, there's a lot of people willing to say, like, he just phrased it poorly, and obviously he wasn't saying all Mexicans are rapists, just saying some of them are. He wasn't trying to paint them all
He never even said that all Mexicans are rapists. He said the ones coming here illegally, they're bringing rapists, they're bringing murderers, and it's true. He didn't label them all. He said they're coming with them.
Well, the only thing I would say on that, though, is that it paints an image of fear about Mexico and about Mexicans. And that's just like politics 101, like painting fear about a group is a very effective way of campaigning or getting support from people who they're
No,
not going
no,
to
it's
necessarily
not.
think of the nuance of that.
It's not
And
fear
I
of a
think that
skin
could be racial
color.
politics at the very least.
It's not fear of a skin color, Tim. It's fear of a culture. People can't even cross the border into Mexico without having at least a 75% chance they're going to be robbed or killed by the cartels. Mexico does not know how to police their people. They do not have a good law-abiding culture there. So when they're coming over here and they're coming over here illegally, they're bringing that culture with them. They're not learning the American way like every other person who comes in here legally has to.
Right. Yeah, but at the moment we're talking about politics, and my question to you is, can you see how that might be perceived by, you might not agree with those people, but can you see how it might be perceived as racial politics or kind of putting a
Yeah,
racial
if you're not
wedge?
actually listening to what the guy's saying, yes, I can definitely see how that's going to be construed that way. Definitely.
Right.
But
And I think that the campaign's been littered with moments like that where it builds an image of like, okay, he's playing racial politics a lot.
but that's the media's fault. That's not his fault.
Are you sure? Well, the way he phrases shit is pretty haphazard, you know? When he's like, we need a ban on all the Muslims, blah, 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 until we find out what the hell's going on. And then, you know, they look at the policy later, he's like, he can't do a Muslim ban. He knows that's stupid, you know? But people see that and they're like, oh, he's kind of a bigot against Muslims. Now, you might be like, there's some nuance to that, and there's actually more information there, so he's not a bigot against Muslims. But I can see how the way that he phrases that, very haphazard, you know, very clumsy, that people are going to be like, wow, he just hates all Muslims.
And at the same time, Hillary Clinton was calling for extreme vetting before they could enter the country. That's basically the same thing.
Now he's saying extreme vetting. Did he get that off her?
I don't know if he got it off her, but they were both saying the same thing.
Right. Is this from WikiLeaks? I'm just having a look. She says vetting refugees is impossible. Oh, that's a WikiLeaks. Whatever. But like, I don't like calling people racist and sexist and shit unless I can really tell for sure. And I don't know with Donald Trump. I think he's just like an opportunist. You know, but based on the things he said in private, it seems like he could easily be sexist. I don't know if he's racist. So, and I don't know if he's going to.
So you're saying you're saying because he's President Pussy Grabber that he's a misogynist.
I just know it's a very misogynist thing to say in private, but I don't know. He's not going to like grab pussies in the White House, I'm assuming.
So you're telling me that my female friends who were talking to me about other guys saying they wanted to just grab his ass while he walked by, that's sexist as well, or is that just, you know, human nature?
This happened?
Yeah, it happens all the time. Women chat that way, men chat that way. It's just the way that people talk. Do you hang out with women?
Not particularly. Well, unless you count my fiance.
I've hung out with more women than I have men in my life. And that's just the way, I guess it's just because of my personality. I don't know what it is, but I've hung out with more women than I have men. And these women were dirtier than any of the men I've hung out with. That's not to say women in general are dirtier than men, but the women I hung out with were dirtier than any man I've ever hung out with, except for my dad. So I'm just saying, they say fucked up shit. It doesn't mean I don't think, oh, you're sexist. You're gonna grab a guy by the ass. No, fuck that.
But were they saying like non-consensually just molest people?
He wasn't talking about non-consensually either. They let me do it. He said they'd let me do it.
Your female friends.
My female? No, they not really. They were talking about surprise. One of them even said it's not rape if you yell surprise first. So it's just, I don't know, they were just talking about grabbing his ass. There was no actual, I'm going to go up to him and ask him permission. And then if he says yes, I will grab his ass. There was nothing like that.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's kind of misandrist, isn't it? In a way.
I don't see it that way. No, but you may. I don't.
Well, as I said, I only know that he's like, well, all kinds of dudes make sexist comments.
There, there, there's
It
a good
doesn't
point.
necessarily make them a sexist, but to me, that's a bit of a red flag. Like maybe there's other things this person thinks that are concerning. That's it. To me, it's just like it raises questions. But maybe that's the difference between me and other so-called quote unquote social justice warriors is I don't leap to that really quick. I'm just like, okay, there's some issues with this person, and I'm going to be more cautious with this person. But I'm not going to instantly leap to being like you're a misogynist, sexist, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, those particular statements were misogynist, in my opinion. But I can't read his fucking soul. He might have just been talking shit because he's a douche, you know. And lots of people are douches who talk shit. So
Mm-hmm.
you know, I don't know for sure, but I also know that he's got like right wing policies around. Well, because you know he's in bed with the religious right, and a lot of that will be around like restricting abortion and like access to birth control, and maybe getting like stupid abstinence education into schools, that kind of shit.
Well, that's
So
where
I'm
you
very
and I are
concerned about
going to
that.
differ. I don't agree with abstinence education, but I
Mm.
certainly don't agree with late term abortions or really abortions that aren't.
Oh, I just meant abortion. I didn't mean late term.
And as far as I'm concerned, I don't think abortions should be legal unless you've been raped or your life is in danger because of the baby. I think there should be regulations on that.
Well, I'm just saying, you know, when you combine Trump's statements with him being in bed with the religious right, that creates concern. But as we've already said, it's too early to know for sure what he's going to do. If in 2 months down the road he's been like this crazily progressive dude on social issues, I'll be happy. I'll just be celebrating the place. Fantastic.
I'll tell you that as a bisexual person, I do not feel any worry for a Trump presidency. He has stated his opinion on LGBT rights multiple times, and I think everybody's going to be safe as far as that goes.
All right, yeah, I got a question for you then.
Mhm.
What would he need to do for you to be concerned and like hold his feet to the fire? Like, what would you be concerned about?
Well, recently I had heard some shit that he might be talking about Muslim registration, that if you're Muslim, you have to register before you come into the country. I took that in a very critical view. I talked about it in my podcast, and I said, with no hesitation, if that is the thing that he's going to try and implement, I will be fighting right alongside every lefty that there is, because that's wrong. That should not be allowed.
Yeah.
If the moment, because I'm going to be more critical of him than anybody, because I put a lot of hope in him when he said that he could change some things. So if he doesn't do the things that he said, or he starts actually taking rights from people, then we're going to have a problem, and I'm going to be speaking and yelling right along everybody else with that.
What do you think about the drain the swamp shit? Because so far it doesn't really look like. I mean, we'll have to wait and see, but so far it doesn't look promising
Well,
to me. But
everybody's a lobbyist, right? Everybody in Washington is a lobbyist or is receiving financial aid from lobbyists. Okay.
yeah,
The problem is we have a man who doesn't know anything about politics. We have a man who doesn't know how to run a country, and all that's there for him to get the experience that he needs are the people that he said he was going to drain out of the system. So I truly believe that once he gets to a point where he doesn't need those people anymore, and he basically outright said it in the 60 Minutes interview, they're gone. It's over with.
if he doesn't know how Washington works, couldn't he be played by them?
Well, okay, so he is also a businessman, and I think he would know if someone's trying to play him. I think that's kind of what's gotten him this far in his business, is that he's not really played by people. And that's what got him through the election, was that he was not played by lobbyists. He was not swayed by the media. He didn't soften up his position much at all. He just said things in a different way. And then the stupid people were like, oh, well, that's what he means.
Yeah.
That's...
Oh, dude, what if you thought about his safe space thing? that he said recently.
Okay, yeah, that was hilarious to me.
That was real funny, man.
The theater should be a safe place. Well, I get his concern. I get his concern. We've had a president assassinated at a theater before, but safe space
Oh,
may
maybe
not have been the
that's
right
what he
word to
meant.
use there.
He was just being historical,
Yeah, maybe.
you know.
Yeah, theaters of all places should be a safe place for presidents and vice presidents. Just saying.
They were trying to murder Pence
Right.
by being mean.
Yeah.
I watched the video of what they said, and it was really mild and just like, Mr. Pence, we just want you to represent all of us and, be our friend.
Mm-hmm.
And that was it. It was
wow. So there were some boos. There were some boos beforehand that weren't captured on that video, but that's still no reason to just condemn that cast like he did. That was wrong, and I think he needs to go back on that. But that's just my opinion.
Did you see that Pence himself didn't he tweeted afterwards, and he was like, "That's fine, I don't care." No big deal.
Yeah, Pence was like, that's the sound of freedom. Yeah, Pence was like, that's the sound of freedom. And
he liked it then. He's like, yeah, this is great. And then Trump gets on, he's like, bad, not good.
Mm-hmm.
Bad cast.
Yeah, but okay, but he's a human. He's gonna say some things. He's gonna do and I'm critical of him for it.
That's a new line, that he's a human.
He's a human.
It's like, man, standards are getting lower and lower for Trump.
Well,
now he literally just has to be a human.
But listen, okay, if Hillary Clinton had gotten in office, yes, I was going to be upset. Yes, I'd have been sitting here behind my microphone yelling and screaming about how, we're just going to let this corruption continue and on and on and on. I had a video ready for it and everything. But there's a time where you have to accept that this person is the leader of the free world now. And if we're critical of every goddamn thing they utter out of their mouth on Twitter, then we have to take a step back and say, well, what are they actually doing? What they're doing matters a lot more than what they're saying.
Well, yeah, that's always mattered to me the most as well. That's why, during the election, I mean, the only thing I really cared about was the policies. Everything else is just like a distraction. But that also annoyed me when Trump would just say, pull shit out his ass, and then people would believe that that was his policy without actually thinking about it, And I think that's always going to be an issue. It's always going to be the shiny object, this person is saying something that sounds funny, therefore I'm not going to pay attention to what's actually going on in terms of what are they doing in terms of their proposals, and what kind of bills are they putting forth, and what's going on behind, out of the information we have about what's going on behind the scenes. What decisions are they making? How are they coming to these decisions? That's the important shit. And I feel like that always gets lost.
Mm-hmm.
And it definitely gets lost on YouTube.
So let's look at Hillary's policies. Hillary's policies would have led us straight to World War III. I think that's a pretty scary idea. That's literally happening, because that's fucked up.
Yeah, I mean, you just don't know that. You do know that.
I know it when Putin himself says Hillary Clinton being elected will lead to World War III. If there's one person we should believe, it's Putin when he says
why?
Because
Putin,
he's the one who has the nuclear power to create World War III.
Yeah, but do you really think that he would want to start World War III because Hillary won? I think that's kind of fear-mongering, because you would actually have to see how he reacted when Hillary got in.
For years of Obama's presidency, he's been getting angrier and angrier by the way that Obama is surrounding Russia with anti-missile machinery and an actual cruise missile launch pads and everything. He's been doing all of this, and this has been scaring the shit out of Putin, at least publicly. That's what he's saying. He's like, we have the world's only superpower threatening Russia by putting these missiles in strategic places all around us where they can shoot down any nuke we ever fire. He's scared. So, of course, if he's scared about what's going to happen to his country, he's going to lash out.
Right. The place where I disagree is you saying that will necessarily lead to World War III. The place that I do agree at is that is worrisome and troublesome because it's a serious issue. And I did think, like, Hillary's saber rattling on foreign policy was worrisome.
But
But I also think, like, saying World War III is just a slippery slope,
no,
and I think it's fear mongering.
Hillary outright said that she wanted to put no-fly zones over Syria. This against the Russians and against the Syrians. This would have pissed Putin off to the point where he and even our generals, our American general was an American general was sitting there in front of Congress, and he said, "What do you think of that idea?" And he said that would start World War III. That would mean we have to go to war with Russia and Syria.
But we've been sitting here talking about how Trump has sort of waffled on a lot of issues. I'm pretty sure if Hillary got into power and she had that whole mechanism of the presidency, that might partly change her actions as well, and she might be forced to make some kind of compromise. That's entirely possible as well. Surrounded by the generals telling her what's up, she actually has to think about it. So that is kind of like a slippery slope because we don't know perfectly exactly what she would have done in the future.
But she was in the White House, dude. She has that experience. She was with her husband. I mean, she's been there, dude.
And did she cause World War III when she was there?
Well, she wasn't the president, number one.
Right, it's a different role, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a different role, but as Secretary of State, she damn near caused World War III.
When?
With all of the positioning she's been doing in the Middle East, all of the threatening she's been doing against Russia, all of the I guess chest puffing, you could call it, when it comes to nukes with Russia and with getting what is that Syrian leader's name? Drawing a total fucking blank. That fucking guy out of power.
Assad.
Assad, yeah. She's been working very hard to destabilize that entire region around Russia. And that has been pushing Russia closer and closer to declaring war on the United States.
Well, I think if we could find some point of semi-agreement, it would be, what I've already said before, that it was worrisome. Like, it does matter. It's a big deal.
Right.
I'm just not willing to just take a massive leap and say, therefore, World War III, because I think that is just slippery sloping it. Like, you just take it straight to the extreme. And I think that's kind of fear-mongering. But it was worrisome, absolutely. And I think I didn't like the fact she was hawkish. I didn't like that about her.
And how about what she built her campaign on? She built this thing, finally, there will be no such thing as a glass ceiling in America for women. Finally this, finally that. And then when she lost, women everywhere were like, oh, we're fucked. No, you're not. You're in the same boat you were 5 minutes ago. You know?
A better candidate. Elizabeth Warren, I think, should be better. I prefer her.
I mean,
but she's actually progressive, so...
I would have preferred any woman over Hillary Clinton. I didn't vote against Hillary Clinton because she was a woman. The first time I voted for Obama, the one time I voted for Obama, I voted for him because he was black, and that was stupid. I was like, hey, white guilt. Let's go ahead and give this guy a chance, and that's what they were counting on, and it worked.
You actually have white guilt?
I do, yeah.
What? What's that like? Because I always get told that I have it, but I don't. So what's it like having white guilt?
Well, when I grew up in school, I was taught rather repeatedly that the white people were the bad guys. That they went and took over America from the Native Americans. They brought in slaves from Africa, and they just didn't care about anyone. If they didn't look like them, then screw them. That's what I was taught. So it made me semi-racist, though, to be quite honest, because I did things for black people because they were black. And that's a type of racism. It may be a generous type of racism, but it's still a type of racism.
But I don't know why you would feel guilty about that, because you're not those people. You're a different person.
Exactly. So when I grew up and finally realized that, I'm not responsible for any of this. This isn't my fault. This isn't my doing. I was able to, but I still feel that every once in a while. I still feel, well, maybe we should because they're black and give them a little bit. No, to me, now I'm kind of more firm on that. Just treat people like people, no matter what they fucking look like, and no matter what happened in the past.
I think maybe the difference with me, I suppose, is that I always feel a strong empathy for people who are struggling or having difficulties of some kind, and that's kind of like my, I don't know, my weak point. So like what I do is never driven by guilt. I'm never guilty about anything. I don't even know what I would be guilty about. It's just human empathy. And sometimes that empathy extends to groups. I'm like, I have empathy for difficulties going on in the communities of minorities, because I've not necessarily faced those struggles particular to that community.
Well, I have been on the other side of oppression in my life. I have been in real oppression, and I know what that's like. And
all right, well, people say white people can't be oppressed or they can't struggle. I mean, that's just stupid. So
it completely is.
Yeah.
But so I've been there. I know what that's like. So I've also had a mindset that has held me back before, and I know what that can feel like too. You think you're thinking in the right direction, and you think that, oh yeah, you're the victim, but really you're not. You just have to grab yourself up by your bootstraps and just do your shit. So
you got to have bootstraps available.
Make them. That's the thing. You always have the opportunity to make those bootstraps.
Just whittle them from some sticks and leaves.
Exactly. Then it may be a little bit harder than some people, but that's just the way it is. Some people's lives as white people are a lot better than mine. Donald Trump's family never knew what hungry was. Okay, they probably don't even know.
He only got a very small $1 million loan.
They probably don't even know what a $1 bill looks like. Okay, I get that. But and I know how hard it is to attain that $1 bill when you're under an oppressive boot. But you've got to do it. But that's just going to be the same, no matter if you're white, black, whatever. There's going to be people who are rich. There's going to be people who have this advantage over you or that advantage over you. Brian just said in chat, coming from a black man, I don't want your pity, no offense. That is exactly the reason why I have tried to let go of that white guilt, is because
pity. I don't have pity.
Right. It wasn't.
I have empathy.
No, he's talking to me. He said, Brad, I don't want your pity. I was the one who kind of put it in the kind of pity frame. That was me.
I want your pity. Please give me your pity.
But to me, okay, thinking that way, I then learned kind of turned out to be more racist than just saying to someone, here, just, do better. Just try and do better. That's all you can do in this life. And wow, fucking motorcycle. Sorry about that, guys. So
bastard.
So yeah, that's why I ended up letting that go, because I realized that was far more racist than just living my life. And so that's why I let it go, because it turns into a race game, an oppression Olympics, and who's more oppressed than who. And I didn't want to get into all that.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a difficult subject. I mean, have you heard like reverse racism?
It's not. It doesn't exist.
Yeah, it's funny because reverse racism was, in my experience, always something that like right wingers and conservatives would say, and then I saw like a questions to like social justice warriors, and one of the questions was, why do you believe in reverse racism? And I was like, well, I'm fucking confused. Wait, so like left-wing social justice people believe in that? I thought that was a conservative thing.
Yeah. Well, okay, so they believe reverse racism doesn't exist because you can't be racist against a white person. That's what SJWs believe. I believe reverse racism doesn't exist because it's just fucking racism, no matter where it's coming from, no matter who it's to.
Yeah. Well, that's why I'm always getting conflicting information on whether I'm an SJW or not. Like people are always like, nah, Tim, you're not regressive. And then someone else will be like, Tim's fucking the king of the regressives. He's such a cuck. And then some other guy will be like, you're not SJW. And someone else will be like, he's super SJW. And I'm just like, just figure it out amongst yourselves and get back to me about what I am, please.
It's the company you keep, buddy. It's Fisty Splinters and those guys that give you a bad name sometimes.
They've always treated me very respectfully and kindly. I mean, I know
Well, so have I,
everybody
haven't
has
I?
that experience. Yeah, that's why I'm talking to you now.
Yeah.
But I know other people haven't had that experience, but I mean, I'm not rude or a douche to people for like no reason.
Mhm.
Like just because people tell me that like Steve Shives or Christie are such horrible people.
Mhm.
I mean, until I see it or they're horrible to me or I have some indication that they're actually horrible people, I mean, then I'll start believing you. But until then, I just like if someone seems cool to me, then I'll be their friend. I don't care what other people have to say about them.
Right.
You know.
Yeah. So it's just we're developing this divide. There's this side versus that side, and now you've got to draw your line. You've got to say which side you're on. I think we need to stop doing that. I think we just if there's an idea that deserves criticism, then you criticize it. Leave the identity politics at home. Just leave the ideologies at the door. Together, we need to build a better America or a better free world, and together, we can get that done as long as we're not subscribing to identity politics.
At least on YouTube and online, a lot of identity politics seems to be based just on that person's history. It's like, for example, if Christie makes a video about something, a lot of people are going to fucking hate it because Christie made it, and that's it. They're not going to like necessarily think about what's in it. Just be like, fucking Christie with his fucking stupid videos, you know. And I think there is too much of that online, but I feel like I don't know what I could possibly do to prevent that. That's just sort of what happens.
You're doing it right now. I mean, so you coming on this show right now, talking with me civilly, and me not throwing the word cuck at you 5 times a minute. This is what builds those relationships and what actually builds a better world. We're going to disagree. We're going to have arguments, but that is what free speech is for. It is that is the purpose of free speech, and that's why it's so vital to a free society.
Well, I mean, if I could sum up the difference between you and me on Trump, I think it's perhaps I'm a lot more pessimistic, you're more optimistic, and maybe I read more into like the people he's surrounding himself with, and I read more into the people who are supporting him than you, because you generally seem to think that he's got a strategy down or some kind of game plan that he's going to enact. Is that right?
At the very least, some kind of idea of what he wants to do in there.
Yeah. See, I'm way more pessimistic about that, but I also know if Hillary won, it would still be far from perfect.
Right.
And yes, we would be having a conversation about Russia that would be concerning. Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
I agree with that. Yeah.
So before we actually went live, you said something about wanting to talk about the alt-right. Is there any more in detail you wanted to go with that?
Oh, it's basically that Richard Spencer dude who was at the rally doing the Nazi salutes. I saw a debate sort of between him and this former CNN guy, Roland Martin. I don't know if you know that dude at all.
No.
But it's just like basically they were debating things and having a conversation, and I guess it's difficult to talk about if you haven't seen it. But he was asked about that whole Nazi salute thing.
Right.
And he was basically like, yeah, the alt-right, we're kind of cheeky. We're kind of ironic. We make jokes and stuff. And the guy was kind of like, yeah, but if you're a nationalist and a white nationalist saying Hail Trump doing Nazi salutes, can you see how that doesn't seem ironic? Like it seems like actual Nazism. And he's all like, the media just want to like make shit up, and they're always telling lies. And no, it's very fun. It's very cheeky, And he's a young dude, Richard Spencer. He's got a bit of a like millennial-ish vibe. So I thought it was kind of like he's like a trendy Nazi. It's really weird, He's like a Nazi trendster.
Yeah.
They're like, Hail Trump is all is totally in this season. Like, we're all just doing the Nazi memes and blah blah blah. But then you actually dig down on what he believes, and he is like, white people are superior. White people built everything in history. They were having an argument about slavery, and he was like, black people didn't build America. And then the host guy was like, whoa, wait, they literally did, technically speaking, because of slavery. And he's like, yeah, but the slaves didn't invent anything. And I just sort of moved the goalpost. And yeah, it was a very weird conversation. He doesn't seem to be a deep thinker.
Wasn't it a freed slave that invented peanut butter?
Really?
I think so. I think so.
It's the greatest invention of all time.
I think so. But
no, it was very weird. Like, he's really trendy. He's like hip. He's young, but he's not deep. He didn't seem to have a lot of substance to him. You know, it just seems like kind of funny to him, but he still believes it at the same time. And like, that kind of sums up the alt-right to me somehow. You know. Like,
well, okay, so
Nazi trendsters.
Here's the thing. There's no person who created the alt-right. The alt-right is a term created by the media. There's no person who can sit there and tell you what is alt-right and what isn't.
Richard Spencer is probably like the best person for that, because he's attributed with popularizing alt-right. So he's often seen as kind of the father of the alt-right. And there was a funny tweet by Ahmed Skeptic where he was like, you know, alt-right is just like another phrase. It gets co-opted by people and then corrupted, in reference to something Richard Spencer said. And it was like, dude, he literally is the guy who came up with the alt-right. So you're saying he's corrupting his own term? He's the guy who came up with it. Like, what do you mean?
Right. Well, and then again, we have to remember, and Brian pointed this out, but I'll say it in a little bit of a different way. It was only the rich people that had slaves. You had to spend a whole hell of a lot of money to buy a person. So it was only like he said, around 1.4% of the white people in America had slaves. So, and it was also the Africans that were selling their own people into slavery too. So we can, you know, the white people can't take all the blame for that.
That's, to me, that's kind of a bit of a two wrongs makes a right argument. Like, hey, black people also had slaves. It's like, yeah, so what? I mean, you know, having slaves is wrong. Does it like, you know, white people had slaves? Just because black people had slaves, like, how's that actually making a point? I don't get it.
No, I got you. I'm just saying that. Not only the white people can't be the only ones to take guilt for that.
Anyways, yeah, I'm reading here that Richard Spencer started a website in 2012 called Alternative Right, and that's seen as in 2010 called Alternative Right, and that's often seen as where the term alt-right came from Richard Spencer's website. I'm just reading this. Interesting. But
yeah.
That it had been used in a magazine randomly earlier than that, but it didn't mean what it means now. It was just, you know. But fuck, the alt-right is weird, man, because it seems like a mixture of trendy young nationalist people and probably some of the, you know, typical old school KKK, you know, Southerners.
Right.
So it's kind of a weird mix. And then some people who think like, oh, it's just fine. It's just like, you know, it's a standard political movement. Why does everyone keep comparing it to Nazis? This is so mean. Some people like that too.
I mean, okay, so I'm as against Nazis as the next guy. But at the same time, they have the right to say what they want to say. They have the right to believe what they want to believe. That's what's so great about freedom. That doesn't mean that you have the right to believe anything you want to believe as long as it's good. But you know, I don't think you can credit these people for the rise of Trump. I think the people you can credit more are just your average everyday Americans who are sick of being called racist when they know for a fact they weren't.
Oh, I mean, I don't extrapolate based on their existence. I just think they're part of the mix, and I at least always try to separate people out.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess my tweet where I was like, I'll just call the alt-right neo-Nazis, that was a bit mean, but maybe I should take that back.
Yeah.
Not all.
Hashtag not all.
Some. I just think it's a very alarming trend. Like, it just seems too common, and I don't think there are enough people calling it out, because I think people on the right should say, like, we have no interest in this, and this is garbage.
Why should they waste words? They never said that they support them. So why should they have to say that they don't support them?
Because they're part of the mix. Because they're part of this whole Trump stew. They're like, we like Trump. Trump's great. I think the rest of the right should be like, go fuck yourselves. Fuck off.
Well, Obama didn't come out and say, hey, fuck the Black Panthers.
Yeah, but I've got my issues with him too. So
I mean, everybody has their issues with Obama, but
he's a consummate politician. He would always avoid saying controversial things.
But just
they call him no drama Obama.
But just because you have problems with Obama doesn't mean that that you're not bringing that up. You're not bringing up that the left weren't shouting out, "Oh, fuck the Black Panthers." So there's bad people in every party. There's bad people in every religion. There's bad people in every race. Any group of people, there's going to be a bad person in that group of people.
Right, but people always have the power to call those people out, though.
But why call them out? What end would that achieve? Just to look cleaner?
To not have those people associated with you, for one. Which is something that, I mean, like, it sounds like it's something that frustrates you and frustrates other people, but it wouldn't frustrate them so much if they just called them out, because then no one would have any grounds for saying that.
Okay, look at it this way. Do you believe that I am associated with abortion clinic bombers?
No.
Did I have to say outright that I don't like abortion clinic bombers?
No, but they're not part of your political realm.
I'm a Christian.
Really. Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
I'm a Christian.
Well, I didn't fucking know that, did I?
No.
I do know these things about or maybe I did know that, just don't pay attention. But I do know that these alt-righters and Trump are connected in the sense that the alt-righters are currently worshipping Trump and saying "Hail Trump," and that's concerning. You didn't say recently like "Hail abortion clinic bombers."
No, I did you? No, I didn't.
Oh no, wait. That would be a fallacious example. I mean, like, if other Christians were saying "Hail abortion clinic bombers," I might ask you about it because you're a Christian. I'd be like, "What do you think of this?"
Oh yeah.
And you'd be like, "Fuck those people."
Yeah.
And I'd be like, "Yeah, cool."
Yeah. Basically, I say fuck all extremists and fuck everybody who doesn't fucking think about things logically. That's the way I look at it.
Right. Yeah. Fuck everyone.
Being a Christian, I believe 100% that my religion should have nothing to do with the laws here. At all. My religion should have no say in the laws of America, because America was not founded by God or Jesus. It was founded by men, and it's their land, and they can say what they want.
Well, there's a question then. If Pence and the religious right do kind of seize control,
Pence. I would want Pence impeached.
Oh, okay. So you wouldn't be okay if they were like, we're gonna try to roll back gay marriage and...
No, I would not be okay with that.
Okay, well, that's cool.
I believe my beliefs in my faith are very complicated. My biggest thing, this might help you a little bit, is I believe that there's no such thing as magic. There's no such thing as the supernatural. And if there is a God, he is completely bound by the rules of science. That's what I believe. So along those lines, I believe that anything founded by men is men's. In the Bible, God says, give unto Caesar what is Caesar's. Well, this land is the United States government, where I'm living at least, belongs to the United States government. When the people of the United States had decided that they were ready for gays to be married, and again, I'm also bisexual, when they had decided that, then that was the law of the land, the lay of the land. My Bible tells me that I have to follow that.
Right.
So, but as far as Pence goes, he is a direct threat physically take people's rights away and put them in places where they can be electrocuted into believing that they're not gay anymore. I have a huge problem with that. I truly believe that if Donald Trump does get impeached, I want Pence to be impeached right behind him.
Right. So Pence was not a negative enough influence for you to not support Trump.
No, because Pence, and I've seen it with Biden, I've seen it with Cheney. These vice presidents don't have any power. Okay.
I totally disagree when it comes to Cheney, but Biden, maybe.
Right. These vice presidents don't have any power, and Donald Trump has openly many times disagreed with Pence's logic on things. So we see that the president is at odds with the vice president, which to me is healthy. But I don't see Pence's presence actually influencing the Trump presidency unless Trump is assassinated or impeached.
Yeah. I don't know about that though, because Pence has a lot of connections to other people on the religious right, and they could easily just start surrounding Trump and advising him. But then again, Trump is such a wild card. It's hard to know how much of that he'd just reject or take on board. Because I honestly don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how much he drives his own presidency and how much he takes a back seat.
Right.
Because it's difficult to tell right now whether he's going to be led by the nose or whether he's going to be confident and do things himself. Or are they just going to put shit in front of him and be like, sign this shit, Trump, and he'll be like, okay,
right. Well, you'll find, especially since we're now under right leadership, you'll find that I truly believe that religion has no place in politics.
Right.
You'll find that I'm going to be very critical of any policies the right puts forward that are based on religious tenets or based on non-scientific thinking. So if they want to start, really cracking down on stem cell research and stuff like that, I'm going to put my foot down. I will say something. We need to look at every idea from a secular standpoint. That is what will get us through. Looking at things from a religious standpoint just creates religious wars. And those are the dirtiest, most blood-soaked wars that there are. So we have to be careful.
Absolutely. Yeah. Fuck, I was going to say something and I forgot completely.
I'm sorry.
It's always fun. Yeah, I blame you. It's your fault.
I go off on tangents, man. That's so good at this.
Yeah. Fuck. Nah, mind fart.
Okay. So Pence, when I started looking into him, really concerned me. But it made me laugh because as a lot of people in the chat have been saying, assassination insurance. It is like Donald Trump picked the one right-wing candidate that nobody would ever want to be actually president and made him his vice president so that if he did win, he couldn't be removed.
Yeah. I mean, I wonder what his reasoning was for picking that guy.
He doesn't agree with a lot of what he says. You see it constantly. He's constantly disagreeing with things Pence says.
Yeah. I wonder what his motivation was.
It could be like I said before, he's a shrewd businessman, and it very well could be exactly what I just said, where he literally was like, "You're my insurance. Yeah, I get to keep my office if I win."
Yeah.
I really.
Yeah, I mean, because I've seen Pence for years on just interviews on like CNN, MSNBC, and all that kind of shit, just saying the wackiest right-wing garbage about like abortion and talking about how he hates same-sex marriage and all this kind of stuff. So I mean, he's got a long history of being extremely socially conservative.
Well, we know for a
Yeah.
fact that Trump is going to put in some right-wing people into the uh, God, why is my brain blanking so much today? The Supreme Court, the Supreme Court
Yeah.
justices he's going to put in.
Hmm.
And we may see an overturn of Roe v. Wade, where the abortion laws then go back down to the states. We may see that, but I won't really fight that, because I'm a man who believes that those laws actually go to the state. But in my state, I would be fighting for the right to abortion. If the woman has been raped, or if her life is in danger because of the baby inside of her, that's it. I still believe it's life. After like a week, it becomes an actual life form, in my opinion.
Right.
But if they start trying to overturn the gay marriage laws, which would be highly unconstitutional of them to do, but if they do, I will throw up a fuss right alongside you. It's something I hold dear to my heart, is that people should not be governed by religion. They should be governed by their culture and their society, and the way that their life is supposed to live, in that country.
Sure. So, I mean, do you think you'll last much longer than 4 years, or you thought he was going to be impeached for something?
Yeah, no, I do believe he can be impeached if he does anything that the people see as untoward or unwanted. But if he does last through his first term, I truly believe he'll get a second. It's not because I do think he'll be a good president, but I don't think that's why he'll get the second term. I think he'll get the second term because every president has had their second term. No one has lost re-election.
Well, Bush did.
Bush
the
did.
first.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, he lost to Clinton.
Oh, okay. Well, was there a lot of controversy behind that?
No, it's just like Bill Clinton came on the scene and he was young and charismatic, and Bush was part of that like dynasty of Bushes, and people were sick of the Bushes as they get, and then they get over getting sick of them and they vote them back in again.
Yeah.
Hell. But yeah. But yeah, so like I mean, Bill Clinton was just young, charismatic governor, and Bush lost. So
if he makes it through the first term, if he runs again, I truly believe he'll win re-election, but he may not run again. He's going to be 74 years old.
On the Democratic side, then, that's a good question. Like, what kind of candidate or person do you think should run on?
I have my problems with Bernie Sanders. I would not want Bernie Sanders to be president.
That sounds like a dream.
No, it's socialism, and I have a problem with socialism.
Yes.
Socialism is just communism light, in my opinion.
Yeah. That's my response.
Democratic. I'd like it to be someone who's not a regressive or progressive Democrat. I'd prefer someone who's more center, like me, because I'm center. I'm a libertarian.
Yeah.
I would like to see a woman run on the Republican ticket. That's what I would like.
What do you mean, like a Republican challenge a Republican president?
I mean,
do you mean in 8 years?
If Trump doesn't run?
Oh, yeah.
Because he's going to be 74 years old. So if he doesn't run, I would like to see a female Republican run for office, and not the ones
Kelly Fiorina.
Yeah, no.
No.
I'd even vote for Sarah Palin, but
that mean you're doing some identity politics or whatever?
Yeah, just a little bit of I'm not. I don't vote just Republican or Democrat. I really look at the candidates. I'm a libertarian, right-leaning libertarian, but I look at the candidates and I say, okay, who more fits my values, at least by what they're saying, and hopefully they try to match what they were saying during their election. But that's just politics.
Yeah. I mean, we probably just completely disagree, but I want the left to go in a more progressive direction, because I think that they're not providing enough of an alternative. I think Hillary Clinton was just boring milquetoast continuation of the system.
What
as it
more
is.
progression do you want, Tim? We're progressing so far that we're going backwards now.
There's lots of things, but that would be, we've talked about one of them so far, which is, I think, like universal healthcare would be a good one. But I think like green energy, that'd be a good one. Investing in new industries, inventing things, technology.
You just have to make green energy profitable. If you make green energy profitable, it'll become a Republican thing too.
Right.
I'm just saying.
A lot of people, I mean, I'm not a fucking scientist, obviously, so I don't know for sure, but a lot of people are saying Trump's policies on global warming are going to just like destroy the planet and shit.
Well, okay, so he's a person, he's a climate change denier. He doesn't believe in climate change. At least last he tweeted about it. He's
low energy or something.
Right. So he's now, but here's the thing: back in the 80s, our scientists were already saying that that it's already too late. We can't reverse global warming. There's nothing we can do.
The point of no return. Yeah.
And now we have scientists who are saying, well, even if we did something now, it would take this long for it to even take effect, and it's this long before all the damaging things. So it's just we're already past it. So what does it matter what choices he makes? Even according to the scientists, we're already over the edge.
Right. Well, I mean, yeah, I've talked to some people about that, and I had a similar point of view to the thing that you're saying. I was like, haven't they said they've already passed the point of no return?
Mm-hmm.
So I guess Trump would just be accelerating it.
Here's what we need to focus on, okay? In my personal opinion, and Trump has not said anything about this, but in my personal opinion, we need to be focused on getting the fuck off the planet. If we can focus on getting the hell off the planet, first off, that's going to open up green energy opportunities, okay? Because
by destroying ourselves and going extinct. What do you think?
No, I don't like that idea. What I like is that we get off this planet and we infect the rest of the galaxy. But by trying to do another space race, we will open up so many more energy technologies. So if we can make green energy more affordable for people, more affordable for businesses, and more affordable for the government, then we will then. And that's how this change has always happened in the past. It's come from the private sector. None of the lasting changes that have happened, good lasting changes that have come from the government sector, and that's something we need to consider.
Well, I'm just looking at some sources here, and it says the bad news: Earth's climate change problem past the point of no return. Atmospheric carbon levels have passed 400 parts per million. They won't return to more environment-friendly levels ever again for the indefinite future. The good news? Oh wait, no, sorry, we're screwed.
So again, what does Trump's energy policy matter? But what I will say is this:
just faster death, I guess.
If he can get NASA to work with Elon Musk, then we will then see an advancement in all technologies so fast. I mean, it's the same thing that happened back in the late 60s with the space race in the Soviets. It was because of that race and because of those advancements in space technology that we have the computer technology that we have now, that we have the energy technology that we have now, that solar panels are so much more affordable than they were back before that whole thing started. So we need another innovation in the private sector. And I can see us moving to more affordable green energy.
Right. Well, maybe they can invent a machine that somehow sucks all of the carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere. That would be pretty cool. Like a giant vacuum cleaner or something.
What would be awesome is if we came up with technology that would take those carbon emissions and turn them into energy. And which is possible. Yeah. I've talked, my roommate is an engineer. He has a degree and all this other shit. He says right now there's no way to affordably do it so that it actually reverses climate change, but you can turn carbon emissions into energy.
Well, I remember like a while back that Zeitgeist movie. The
Hmm.
guy was talking about how you can make infinite energy out of magnets,
Hmm.
and I'm like, what's going on with that?
Well, perpetual
Why are we
motion.
making?
Perpetual motion is not a thing. It cannot be. It cannot be done. You will always, when you're trying to convert something into energy, you'll always have a loss ratio. There's no such thing as a perfect energy production process.
So you can't set up magnets that go against each other, um, just based on magnetism, and you take the frictional energy from that. Like that's impossible.
No, because okay, so because some of that friction gets put out in heat instead of energy, or gets put out in light instead of energy. So that little bit of energy is going off into heat or going off into light. And in fact, currently, in order to make these machines that would do that, you would actually have to put out at least 2 times the amount of carbon emissions to turn carbon emissions into energy.
Yeah. Damn. Well, yeah, and that was a while back. The Zeitgeist guy saying, "We have access to unlimited power because of magnets."
Yeah,
It's
that's
like, well, yeah.
it's like Zeno of that's the first law of thermodynamics is basically there's no such thing as perpetual motion.
Well, that movie is kind of like a utopian vision
Hmm.
of because he also talks about like in the future we will have robots that will build whatever we need whenever we need it.
Hmm. Well, I
So
mean, I
he's
could
like,
see
yeah,
that. I mean, I could definitely see where if we did have a utopian type, the only way that I could see it as working is if machines gave us everything that we needed and not people, because people are corrupt, people are going to
yeah.
steal, people are going to
But
cause
then we
waste.
just end up with the Matrix.
Right.
Fuck that.
But like if replicators became a thing, which I don't know if that could ever happen. I'm not a scientist, but if replicators did become a thing, then you could have an entire society that could eat whatever the hell they want, watch whatever the hell they want, play with
Yeah.
whatever the hell they want, and they wouldn't have to pay a cent to do it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Zeitgeist was a movie where I mean, I think I was a teenager when it came out, and when I saw it, I was like, "This shit is blowing my mind." But then a few years later, you're like, "Actually, that was kind of stupid." When you
Yeah.
think about it, like none of
When
that
you were
actually makes
prone
much
to flights of
sense.
fancy.
Yeah, like it's kind of film that like I felt that way about some like Michael Moore documentaries
Hmm.
when I was
Yeah.
younger.
Yeah.
Except Bowling for Columbine, I always knew that was just propaganda. But like Fahrenheit 9/11, I was like,
Oh.
whoa.
Yeah, I mean, they presented a lot of information in Fahrenheit 9/11 that just makes you go, "Holy shit!" And but I'm not a truther, but
Yeah.
it did make you think. The
Mm.
what is it that Sargon says? Oh yeah, the mark of an intelligent mind is to be able to entertain an idea without accepting it.
Ugh.
He quoted that off of someone else too. That's something that I believe.
You quote Sargon at me? How dare you? Yeah.
But that is something I truly believe is that in order to be intelligent, you have to be able to entertain an idea without accepting it. So I watch everything that I can that
Sounds like
goes against.
Marxism to me. So,
Well,
well,
just
I mean, I don't want to get on the Sargon, but it's just funny. He said there's only two types of things on the left: classical liberal and Marxism. And I was like, huh, I guess I'm a Marxist then. That's
yeah.
unfortunate.
Well, I found out yesterday that I'm a communist. Apparently.
Are you? What did you do?
Oh, it was reading the communist goals from the Naked Communists that was written back in 1958, and one of them was like something that I vehemently agree with, and I'm like, oh, I guess I'm a communist since I agree with one of those communist goals.
Yeah, that sucks. Eh? I hate it when you find out you're a communist.
Right? It's a common occurrence for you, Tim.
Well, I just found out my fiance's a Marxist. So is our relationship over?
It's it. That's done. It's over.
I'm like, why didn't you tell me this before?
Damn it! Why didn't you tell me you were a Marxist?
No, but she's more left than I am. I didn't even know that. I was like,
Oh,
oh
really?
shit. Because I'm still kind of like a bit of a capitalist at heart.
Mhm.
So I mean, me getting called a Marxist is ridiculous because I'm I'm not very left at all.
Mhm.
I call myself progressive, but I would be on the like mild end of progressivism.
Mhm.
I'm just sort of I'm to the left of center left,
So,
somewhere around there.
so does your fiance have you cucked then?
If I knew what that meant, yes. Or no, I don't know. What does that mean? No, well, neither of us can sleep with other people. So
So in the most literal sense, no, you're not cucked.
literally no.
Literally, no.
Figuratively.
Maybe.
She's Marxist. She's cucking me through Marxism. That's how it
Is she a
works.
feminist?
She is, but she's not like very. She's not clued in on all the shit that's going on with feminism. She's just sort of general feminist.
Okay.
Like some people are like, yeah, like I'm a Christian, just sort of like generally a
Yeah,
Christian.
generally, I believe there might be a god up there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't mean to compare feminism to religion. I'm sure like you guys would love that, but I just mean like she's not like really tied in or clued in on like all of the drama that's going on.
Hmm. Yeah.
Like I always tell her about shit that's going on online and Twitter and all the drama stuff, and she's like, "Well, that sounds weird." I'm like, "Yeah." Like the other day, I tried to explain to her what a social justice warrior was, and she was like, "Oh, do you mean like someone who's PC?" And I was like, "Yep, that's exactly what it is. Yes, it's just another word for a PC person." She's like, "Well, you
Oh,
could have just did that." I
come
was like, "Well,
on.
that's not what's popular online. People
It's
say social
more
justice
than
warrior."
that. Come on. It's more than that.
Uh,
We're more than just anti-PC. We're anti-ideology running your brain. That's basically the way we are.
yeah, but that's pretty fucking vague. What do you mean?
Okay,
Like social
so
justice is just a ideology. There's lots of ideologies.
I don't
Your brain
think
could be run
any.
by something that's not social justice. Could be
I don't
something
think,
else.
and I will fight against any other ideology that is super famous right now and actually causing things to change. So if I were around on YouTube and the abortion clinic shit was going on or something like that, I'd be against that. I'd be against
Yeah.
being wrapped up in your ideology. I'm just against anything that takes away your right to have a different opinion from people who may have similar opinions to you. I mean, we go
Yeah.
back to Black Lives Matter. If a black guy walks up with a camera and starts asking critical questions of Black Lives Matter, well, then all of a sudden Black Lives Matter don't matter anymore. Black lives don't matter anymore because now this guy's on the ground getting his ass kicked by BLM protesters.
Oh, okay.
So it's that kind of thing I'm against, and they do
Wait,
it to women too. The feminists do it to women, and
I didn't hear about that. Did a black photographer get the shit beat out of him by BLM people?
yeah, he was. I think he was filming it for YouTube or something like that, and he was asking them some questions. He was being critical, and then they broke his. They knocked his camera out of his hand. I don't think it was broke, but they knocked his camera out of his hand, and then they started kicking his ass. They all piled
Okay.
on top of him.
Right.
So it's
But
that
you
kind of
see, I mean,
mentality that I try to fight against.
but it's not like Black Lives Matter was formed around the ideology of randomly beating photographers. Like,
But no, here's
those,
what I'm saying.
yeah.
Ideology makes people this way. If you are following something to the point where it's an ideology for you, where to the point where it is something you live and breathe, you're going to act in this visceral, angry way because this is your ideology, and you find they very rarely differ. If you start to try and differ from what they're saying, then all of a sudden you're not part of this ideology. You're black, but your life doesn't matter. We're going to kick your ass anyway. Or
I got you. Yeah.
you're a female, but that's you have internalized misogyny, so you're part of the problem. It's that same thing.
But so you wouldn't say social justice warrior is basically just someone driven by PC? Like when you see the blue haired, pink haired, whatever people yelling or like Tricklypuff or something, that's just not like the old school PC. And in a now it's involving the current youth of today. So you see it online, you see it on YouTube and Twitter, but that's what it is. Or no, you think it's a different thing? The PC shit.
The PC is another thing they've picked up and held. It's much more than just PC. in fact, in many ways, they kind of go against what would be politically correct, because it's not right to be calling people racists and misogynists and homophobes and all these other things all the time. Those words were meant to be used when you identified someone who was actually a racist, or actually a sexist, or actually a homophobe. But they're using these, and they're like tenets, like don't be this, don't be this, don't be this, and then it's like a Christian who says, oh well, here's the 10 commandments, if you break these you're going to hell. A feminist goes, here's the things that you have to believe or else you're a misogynist. It's the same thing.
But the PC thing, like, was kind of like, we have some guidelines, like, say for example on a campus, for like what words you shouldn't use, and one of them could be like tranny, because tranny is transphobic. So if you say tranny, you're a transphobe. And then there's somebody on the campus who's like, no, I'm going to say tranny. And then you have some protesters and they start screaming and yelling. Like, that seems exactly the same as PC back in the day. Except now it's called social justice warrior. At least, I mean, that's my impression.
But see, they're picking up more than just the mantle of correcting, or of keeping the PC culture. There's more.
But I mean, you know, like Jordan Peterson, the Canadian guy, he's like, no, I don't want to use the pronouns. And
that's
they're
his
saying,
right. He's an American.
And they're saying
he's a Canadian who has
damn it.
He's a Canadian who has the right. Oh, he's a Northern American. Booyah. He's a Canadian who has the right to say whatever the fuck he wants to say, and nobody should tell him what to say.
I know, but that kind of social justice situation to me seems exactly like PC liberal in the fucking 90s or something.
So that one,
or like Red Fam, some radical feminists.
That one was definitely centered around PC culture, but there are other things that aren't PC. I mean, PC has nothing, Black Lives Matter has nothing to do with PC culture, but they are SJWs. There's nothing in PC culture about shooting a black guy.
That makes more sense, because that, to me, that is more related to social justice, to be honest, than just, this word, I don't like this word because it's demeaning, which, I mean, I can feel empathetic towards don't use a demeaning word, but I also think that, I was talking to, who was it, like Sean Head or Ahmed Skeptic, one of them said that social justice has like or feminism has a, what's the fucking word, PR problem. You know, because all you see is those angry people screaming.
Right.
Instead of like a dialogue about, all right, do you understand why the word tranny might be offensive, or like why it might make transvestite students feel marginalized or whatever, and having a dialogue and like a conversation about that.
But then you have the ones like Blair White.
People on YouTube yelling. So,
but then you have the ones like Blair White, who is a transgender, and she straight out says tranny all the time. There's no problem. It comes from a place of
but she's an individual.
But
she is an individual, and she can say tranny if she fucking wants, but other people don't like it because they're not her.
But that's coming from a place of insecurity. If they could just learn to grow the fuck up, it wouldn't be a problem.
Right. But that's the thing, is like,
how often was I mean, I was called a fag in school so many times. I was beaten up just for you know, sounding a little bit more feminine when I was a child. All these other things, but you don't see me campaigning for us to control the thoughts of the youth and have them accept something that they find different. That's not my job. That's their parents' job.
I mean, I can only go based on what I would want. And all I would want to do would be to discourage that kind of behavior.
But it's not just being discouraged. It's being entered into law, the words that you can or can't say. If you walk up to me and say, hello, miss, or I call you on the phone, back when I was a kid, I used to call people and they'd say, oh yeah, just a moment, ma'am. I didn't sit there and go, oh, hate speech, because they called me a woman when I'm actually a male. It's not.
That seems like a different example if it was accidental. Are we talking about purposeful and ongoing and repetitive, or are we talking about people making mistakes?
So,
because I don't give a shit if someone makes a mistake. Like, I don't really care. Some people really do care. But I don't give a shit. You know, if somebody, like, if you misgender someone, and even if you do it multiple times because you just keep fucking up,
But
I don't really care about that, but other people will. But to me, I feel like that's a case of like you should probably get over it because they're just making making a mistake. But if someone keeps repetitively and purposefully doing it, that's crossing over into like some kind of bullying or harassment, in my opinion.
Words are not bullying. Physical actions are bullying. Words can just slide off your back. Punches cannot. Physical violence should be considered hate crime. Speech should not.
But you were talking about like, I mean, this is probably a good example to go by is when you were a kid. So like elementary school and junior high school, that kind of thing. I mean, right now we're talking about fully grown adults, so I guess it's a different discussion. But like for little kids, I think they should be given guidance about like, hey, you can't call little Billy a faggot. Just that's not the kind of thing you should be doing. And I want to discourage that as much as possible. But are you saying if it's adults or some shit, I mean, there should be some consequence for like harassing someone, shouldn't there? I mean,
not with words. Not with words. Now, if somebody's calling your house every day or
but I mean, like your boss could fire you or some shit, couldn't they?
I mean,
your boss be like, we don't.
A boss can fire you for any damn thing right now. That's just that's freedom.
Yeah, but Peterson might get fired, and then people will say it's tyranny.
Well, it is because he's going to be fired because he's not speaking, because he's breaking a law. There's a big difference between being fired because you're violating company policy and being fired because you're breaking a law.
Right, but somebody has to pursue that lawsuit, and that would be the people at the university. They'd be pursuing it. Like, it would be their choice to be like, we don't like the way...
Right, but that's not what every case is going to be like, Tim. You're going to be able to now have the people who do overreact be able to prosecute other people because they use the wrong word. It's a precedent, and it's an allowance that allows people to use the law to silence people.
But I mean, like, so do you think that there should be no laws pertaining to any kind of harassment or...
I believe there should be no laws pertaining to any kind of speech. I don't care what the speech is. If you are using your words and not your fists or weapons, then you're doing good for the world. No matter what you're doing.
What about like death threats, whatever?
Well, see, death threats are a bit different. If somebody is threatening your life, they're threatening to take a freedom from you. That is against the law.
It's just words, right? They're just...
But that's a threat of violence, okay? If I walk up to you and say, hey, dude, when you're obviously trying to look like a female, that's not threatening you with violence. That is using the term that you don't want me to use because of your fifis. That's way different.
But I also think, like, ongoing, repetitive, purposeful is different than just some idiot being dumb, and then that's about it. It's like, oh, hey, dude.
So while
I'm a woman. Sorry, dude. No, I'm
not arguing that this isn't coming from a place of compassion. Okay, I'm not arguing that this isn't coming from a place of compassion. What I'm saying is that we should not be allowed to have those people who overreact, and then because that's the way the law is worded. Okay, that's the way the law is worded right now. That if somebody calls male to female, transgender, a male, that they can be put in jail, and that's a hate crime. It doesn't matter how many times you do it. That's the way the law is worded. Bill? Yes, that's the way the law is worded.
Have you read it?
Yes.
It doesn't say anything about pronouns or misgendering.
It says it about speech, hate speech.
It says you can't discriminate against.
And according to them, the reason why they wanted this law passed is because discrimination also counts as not using their pronouns. That was the whole purpose of this bill getting passed.
But they'd have to argue that in a court of law, right? Like their lawyers would have to figure out a way of proving that that's...
The precedent has already been set in the intent of the bill when they introduced the bill and stated its intent.
Hold up, I'm just looking it up. Here it is here. Canadian Human Rights Act. Hold So what does it say? It says blah blah blah. Duties and obligations. All individuals that have opportunity equal with other individuals to make for themselves the lives that they are able and wish to have, and to have their needs accommodated, consistent with their duties and obligations as members of society, without being hindered or prevented from doing so by discriminatory practices based on race, national or ethnic origin, color, religion, age, sex, sexual orientation, gender identity or expression, marital status, family status, disability, or conviction for an offense for which a pardon has been granted or in respect of which a record suspension has been ordered. So that's what it says.
So basically, C16 just adds transgender people to the list of protected classes.
Oh, gender identity or expression. Yeah.
Okay, that's all that bill does. But the actual criminal code that code amends literally says things about speech.
Oh, right. Okay. Well, I haven't read that original bill then.
Right. So this was just okay, we're going to add this specific transgender people to the or gender identity to the list. And the list refers to this big long criminal code that says things like you can't say nigger, or this, that, or the other thing. So, you know,
is it the Canadian Human Rights Act?
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. But it's weird because the line is drawn at gender, but there's all these other things in there as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure if people have made a big deal out of those.
I mean, I would. If I were around when the first hate laws were passed, if they said anything about words, I would have been fighting against it for sure.
Right. Well, I mean, so it's got disability. But gender identity or expression, maybe it's the expression part.
Here's the thing: the psychiatric community, the psychologists have not even determined yet that gender dysphoria is not a mental illness. So we may be encouraging people's delusions by adding them as a protected class. Now, that's not to say that they don't have the right to feel more comfortable in their skin. I absolutely agree that if this makes them feel better, they should do it, like transition and all that. But there's still no evidence that the original finding that gender dysphoria was a mental illness and actually had symptoms that were the same for every single person who had this issue. They haven't proven that it's not a mental illness anymore.
To me, that's just kind of a semantics argument, because whether or not it's a mental illness, these people exist and that's their life. So I think it should just be categorized in the way which best serves the people, to be honest.
I identify as the President of the United States. Give me my Oval Office now, please.
That doesn't make any sense, because that's a job. That's not an identity.
Well,
because I know that you're not. But
gender is not gender isn't an identity either. It's a characteristic that you're born with. It's not an identity.
Except, but how could you, as someone,
do you ever feel like a man, Tim? Do you feel like you're a man?
No.
Like, do you sit there and think to yourself, I'm glad I'm a man, I'm a man, I'm a man? Do you? Because I sure don't.
Recently. No.
It's not an identity. You sit there and think about the things that are your identity. I have a problem with
no, but you see, but I'm cis, so like I'm perfectly comfortable in my own, in the way that I'm categorized. I have no issue with people saying I'm a man. I'm like, give a shit, because that's what cis means. It means I'm happy or just comfortable with what I currently am. So how would I don't know what it feels like to not be cis, because I am. So
in this stream, I have revealed a lot of personal stuff, like the fact that I'm a Christian and all this other stuff. But I'm going to reveal one more thing. When I was a kid, because I was being called a faggot, because I was being bullied, because I was this, that, and the other. I did for a while, up until I was about 18. I truly believed that I should have been born a woman. I thought that I would have been treated better if I was born a woman. I went to therapy and talked to a counselor about that, and we worked through that. And eventually, I no longer felt the need to be a woman. I was perfectly happy being a male. I just was unhappy with everything else. I have depression, so that's one of the things that contributed to that.
Right.
But if I hadn't had a psychiatrist sit down and tell me, I might be going through the same thing now that Caitlyn Jenner's currently going through. She wants to go back to being a man.
Right.
It's so encouraging this and encouraging trenders as well, which is basically what I was, because I had a mild case of gender dysphoria that was very easily fixed, and it was caused by bullying. Okay. But there are more ingrained gender dysphoria. People kill themselves after they've transitioned because they realize, well, that wasn't it. I'm just not happy with who I am. And that's just the way it is. Some people have that problem with their brain. So we have to, instead of encouraging that so that they then go kill themselves anyway, maybe we encourage therapy. Maybe we encourage these other things instead of encouraging 322 different genders.
Well, the thing about your story that just makes it underwhelming as an example is it's like that's just your story. So I mean, why do you assume that that is kind of like the universal experience?
I didn't say that was the universal experience. In fact, I used the word mild. I don't think that it's the universal experience, but what I do think is that there needs to be some thought behind this. Like Blair White said, it took her years to get to the point where she was ready to transition.
Right.
And she had to be there. She had to be ready. She didn't just make a jump. And when she did it, okay, people around her still called her, still referred to her by he because they weren't used to that change. Okay.
Right.
But so we have to be sure, 100% fucking sure that these people really will benefit from a transition, because all we're doing then is we're just encouraging people to amplify their differences and make them feel more and more and more shitty about themselves.
Well, I think the transition part is that's the most intense part of the whole process. Because I mean, if you do a physical change, then there's no real proper going back.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, that is the point of like kind of no return. But I think up until that point, you can approach it various ways. Like you can use the hormones because those are reversible.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so if they go through therapy and like conversation and counseling, and you do come to the conclusion that this is really for them, you can do the hormones and you can prepare for transition, but they have to be able to change their mind and go back. And I thought that like there should be a cutoff age or something. Some people think you should be able to do it at any age, but I think maybe that's kind of too extreme because kids.
I think if you're not old enough to rent a car, you're not old enough to get a sex change. So in the United States, in order to rent a car, you have to be 25 years old.
25? I don't know about that.
Oh, I do.
That seems like a long time to wait for someone who is.
I don't think
totally sure.
How old are you, Tim?
I am 32.
Okay. So do you remember in your 20s when you thought you were damn right about every damn thing and then realized you were damn wrong about every damn thing when you turned about 26 or 27?
No.
Really? Because because
I was too busy just being stoned.
Oh, well.
And listening to music.
Yeah, the brain is done with its it kind of becomes who you are at around 25 for males. For females, I think it's a little bit younger. And it's I think for females it's like 20 that they actually reach their full maturity.
But if someone is really sure at like a very early age, like at the age of 15 or something, it's 10 fucking years of sitting around being like, Christ, I can't.
10 years of sitting around and going, oh, I have a dick instead of a vagina and I don't have tits. I'm sure they would feel it in a much less flippant way because it would be like serious for them mentally. I'm sure they wouldn't just think of it that,
like casually.
But so, I mean, we have pedophiles who their actual sexual orientation is children. Should we be promoting that just because they feel like they're not in place in society because they can't fuck little kids?
Well, no, but I mean, like, who suffers from someone wanting to be a different gender as opposed to
When you start introducing
pedophiles who
laws about
are
how
preying on children?
when you start
It's like, yep.
introducing laws about how I have to refer to that transgender, then that is when that's when I get hurt. That's
It's
when
hardly
I have a
comparable
problem.
to someone being molested or raped by a pedophile, though. I mean, they're just completely different situations.
You
I don't know
take
how.
away free speech and you're molesting the whole population. No, it's not comparable to child molestation, but it's still a violation of rights that I didn't ask for.
Right. Well, if you just don't be a douche, you probably won't. Nothing will happen to you, will it?
Well, I'm not sure about that. I told a story in the stream the other day where I was at, and this isn't transgender, but this is race. I was at work, and the Lion King song came on the radio, and one of my black friends commented on it and said that it makes him feel happy and all this other stuff. And I said, yeah, it reminds you of home, doesn't it? And he took that as racist. He took that as at home in Africa for some reason. But
Well, wait, but where is this guy from?
he was an American. He was born an American. And,
It is a weird thing to say.
Right. And I said, remind you of home. I was talking about at home with your mom, just growing up, being a kid, at home with mom.
Oh, because it's the Lion King. It's nostalgic
exactly
value.
right.
Okay,
I'm a millennial. I grew up with this movie. And oh my God, boy,
awkward.
I ended up in the office. I damn near got fired. I got a final write-up for racism. And this is just at my job. And I didn't even say anything actually racist. So
did you explain what you meant?
Yes, I did. And he said, oh, that's bullshit. So here's the thing you got. When you introduce laws that tell how you can speak, people have to tiptoe. People have to worry about losing their jobs. It is a real worry, and it is a real burden that this small minority of the population is placing on the majority of the population, and that's wrong.
Right. But that was also the choice of your employer to treat it in that manner, wasn't it?
Oh, entirely. But if that culture hadn't been created, Tim, if that culture wasn't already there, then it wouldn't have been a problem. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
It's the culture that this is promoting. So yeah, while they have the right to make whatever decisions they want because they're a private company, they're my employer. If that culture wasn't around, he may not have reacted that way. Because he was looking out for his own ass. He told me that right off the bat. I got to look out for my ass here.
What? I don't get it. He's looking out.
He's looking out for his ass. If I see something racist and he doesn't do anything about it, the black guy that can then go to the
I see. Okay.
ACA or whatever, and get that company sued for a shit ton of money.
Right.
So it's because of that culture that this guy had to put down disciplinary action on me for something I didn't even say that was racist.
Well, I think part of the issue there could be, like, part of the hypersensitivity could be that, and I don't know for sure, it's possible that they were subjected to some kind of racism from somebody else in the past. And so what you said kind of confirmed some past experience they had. So maybe they were hypersensitive.
I'm not responsible for his damn triggers.
Right. But I'm just explaining, like, that's a possible reason as to that. Like, it might not have been this, like, social justice culture, whatever. It could have been this person may have been subjected to racism.
What's to say that somebody walking down the street says, oh, look at that dude because they're holding a sign or something? I don't know. And then all of a sudden he can be, by law, put in jail for saying something that was against transgenders when it really wasn't. He was just saying, look at that dude, or, oh, that dude looks weird. Should you be thrown in jail for saying someone looks weird? No. But that's the kind of language that they're talking about policing with C-16, or that they did police with C-16 now.
I think that's a different bar, because you're talking about, like, prosecuting someone for misgendering. but the discussion we were just having was about doing something on the job and like your employer deciding something. But what you're saying is that
But it's still because of the law that my employer had to watch his ass.
Right.
It's because of the law, because of things you're not allowed to say because it's taboo, that my employer had to watch his ass. It's because of law. So it's very connected.
Okay. Yeah. No, I see what you're saying.
And no, Adrian, I do not still work there. I quit that job a while ago.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I'm not a fucking law expert, and I guess we'll just have to see how it plays out, because I mean, I personally am not very sensitive to shit like that, but I can also understand why other people might be. And I guess that's the thing with me, just like a recognition or understanding of the way other people.
Tim, let me ask you this.
Doesn't make it right.
If a guy gets thrown in jail in Canada for calling a woman a he when after he hit on her or something, and she revealed to him, "Oh, I'm actually transgender," being nice, not trapping him or whatever, and he says, "Oh, well, I don't want to date a dude," and then he gets thrown in jail for saying that, for hate speech. Are you going to be as outraged about that as I am, or are you just going to sit back and go, "That's just an unintended consequence of justice"?
I would definitely see that case as being wrong. I mean, but it sounds, that particular case sounds kind of Orwellian, and it sounds like
that's what we're afraid of. That's exactly it.
I know, but it sounds like the end of the slippery slope. But if I see that, of course, I'm going to be like, that's like your World War III with Hillary Clinton. I'll be like, Jesus, this is kind of out of control. Definitely. But I haven't seen any cases that look like that. I've just like that. That's the next step on.
You just brought up earlier that they would be using that law to get Peterson out of the university. Do you really think this? Do you think this man deserves losing his job because they're using this law now to levy it against him? Do you think he really deserves losing his job for saying that he doesn't want to be forced to call somebody something?
That I'm not sure of, because I'm not sure what his personal conduct is on the job. Is he being a cunt to everybody? If that's the case, like, you can't just freely be a cunt on the campus just for the fuck of it.
And just because we're not at the end of the slippery slope yet doesn't mean that we should just kick the sled down the slippery slope. Okay, we need to be cautious of what comes up ahead of us. That's the reason history keeps repeating itself, Tim, is because we are fucking stupid and don't look at the actual consequences of the things that we do that are, yes, entirely good-natured, but they end up fucking us over in the end.
Right. But if Peterson gets fired, it could be for personal conduct that we are not aware of, and just like how he treats the people around him. Because you're not allowed to just treat people however the fuck you feel like when you're a professor. Or are you? Or do you think you should be?
Well, no. I mean, obviously there's got to be some conduct, way of composing yourself on the job. But I don't think that they have levied any actual charges against him other than him failing to adhere to gender pronouns.
Right.
And they call that abuse. So when you
don't know
that abuse, there's a problem.
I don't know how fair the system is, but if the system is fair, I don't know if it is, then he should be able to overcome it, and they should be proven wrong. But I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. So, yeah.
So we just wait for the shit to hit the fan and say, well, it might, but it might not. So let's just sit back and watch.
Yep. Just like with Trump.
I don't believe that there's any chance of the shit hitting the fan with Trump, because we have a system of checks and balances. But what I do believe is there's a big chance of the shit hitting the fan with the law, C-16, like the laws here that are strictly against males, and we see abused all the time. Once you introduce a law, people are going to abuse it. That's just the way it is. And you cannot make a law that's easily abusable.
If Peterson gets fired or gets in trouble solely on his kind of protest, I think I will be more attuned to that, or like more empathetic to that, than if he gets fired for just being a straight up arsehole to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
In which case, I'll be like, well, he was being an arsehole to everyone, so why should he get to be a professor if he's just being a douchebag? But
Right.
there's a fine line between him being a douche and him doing some kind of legitimate protest.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a very complicated situation. So it's difficult. Like, I can't see him as a free speech martyr like everybody says he is, because I simply don't know enough about the situation, and I know that it's kind of complex.
I'm sure if they had other dirt against him, it would be very public right now. That's what I'm telling you.
Yeah.
I am sure if it was more than the pronouns, you'd have a list of things in front of you that he's done. You know what I'm saying?
Right. I'm just saying I have to wait and see, because I find it to be more complicated than people online say. Like, people online are just like, it's Orwell, it's censorship, it's this and that. And then you look into the situation and you're like, well, there's a range of conflicting parties that have different agendas here. So it's difficult to know what exactly is going on. But yeah, I don't know. We'll wait and see. Yeah. So yeah.
Well, Tim, this has been really fun. We're approaching over 2 hours now.
Well, I'm dying of hunger, man. I could get some food.
I'd love to have you on again. I think we had a great discussion. Even though we disagreed on pretty much everything, we were able to, get our points out there and not call each other names.
Yeah, that's for the follow-up video where I drag your name through the mud.
Yep, go right ahead. All right. Well, thank you for joining me. If you're not subscribed to Tim, please do. He does make some good, funny content. And I want to thank everyone for joining us.
My next video is my 2,000 plus subscriber party celebration.
So, there you go. So I'll make sure I'm there.
Yeah. What's your
All right. All right. Well, everybody, thank you for joining us. You have a happy rest of your Thanksgiving if you're in the United States, and everyone else, have a good day. Bye.
Cool. Bye.